Welcome to the Mental Health Boot Camp podcast, where
Woo!
four psychotherapists, three of us from Canada, one of us from the United States, serve you cutting-edge mental health knowledge. I am Ryan Howes from California.
And I'm Brooke Lewis from Vancouver, Canada.
And I'm Joanna Boyd from Vancouver, Canada.
I'm Chris Boyd from Vancouver, Canada.
Are you guys related somehow? What's the deal?
We are.
Oh, you are?
We are.
Cousins? What is it?
Brother and sister.
Father, daughter? What do we got here? Oh, brother, sister. Got it. Okay. Well, glad we cleared that up. Good to see you guys. And
it's good to see you.
I got to tell you, it's been kind of fun because just this week, we released all of our podcasts on YouTube. So
True story.
all 10, and now this is our 11th, all 11 of these podcasts will be up on YouTube for the world to view at the creatively titled Mental Health Bootcamp Podcast YouTube page.
Oh.
Yep.
And I think it should be noted that we didn't know we were going to start recording or videotaping these podcasts. So the first few are a little rough, maybe.
Well, we just weren't playing to the camera much. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a few bad hair days.
I would have, yes.
Yes.
Appearance would have been questionable for sure for me. So apologies to our viewers.
It's okay. I recognize that in most of our podcasts, I'm wearing this very blue shirt. So I thought, I'm just going to keep wearing the blue shirt. Why not?
Is it your Thursday shirt? Do you just always wear it on Thursdays?
I think maybe I just wear it all the time. I'm kind of like Steve Jobs or, Zuckerberg or whatever. Like just always wear the same clothes so you don't have to think about it, right?
Why not?
Why not? Free my brain up for other things besides fashion choices.
It's true. Think about all the other things you could do with the closet space. You could have like a craft room or a library or a reading nook or
meditation space. You
could use it as a pantry for canned goods.
Oh boy.
Any other ideas? This is just me.
Yeah, great place to do some lunges.
Oh, yes.
Maybe some planking.
Some planking in there, yeah.
That's good. That is good. Yes. Okay. Well, I'll keep that in mind. I'll just have a minimal wardrobe, and I will keep it simple and keep my canned goods in there instead. So, anything happened this week? Anything you guys want to mention?
Oh man, I want to mention, but we're not going to get into it. But as a Canadian, I did watch the presidential debate.
Oh, you did?
And you probably don't want to hear my opinion on it. So we're just like, it's probably not a safe place to discuss.
Oh, it's okay. They say that, in polite company, you should stay away from politics and religion. But I will say that that's our finest delivery of decorum and respectful discourse. That's about as good as we get down here.
Yeah.
Actually, it was really funny because I was watching it for a couple minutes with my kids. I really couldn't watch more than a few minutes. And one of my kids was saying just beforehand, he's like, "Oh, a debate? Well, there's a debate club at my school." Right? And so after watching this shouting and screaming going on TV for a couple minutes, he looks at me and says, "Is this what debate club does?" Like, oh no. Actual debates and debate clubs in junior high school or middle school are much more respectful and, stick to the rules a lot better than what the highest office in the United States does, apparently. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then up here, we're having a provincial election. It was called early. So it's happening a year early. So, and it's happened so quickly. It was a shotgun a little bit. I've decided to vote via mail, and I received my ballot, and I should go show you. It's a literal, you write in. So it's like write in who you want.
Okay.
So this is tricky because you have to write in your candidate for your riding, right? Like you can't just put who you want as the leader or the provincial party, because then those ballots get thrown out. So you have to research who it is in your riding and make sure that you put the appropriate name. Otherwise, these ballots won't count.
Okay. There are like 15 questions I have for you right now.
Sure.
I don't know if we can spend too much of our time getting into a civics lesson of Canadian politics, but how can you hold an election a year early? How does that happen?
Yeah. So they had to, Chris, can you describe it probably better than I can? Because they had to like apply to higher powers to dissolve the government, like on a, I forget what that
Yeah.
term was.
Yeah, so we have a bit of a different system. Our system is based on obviously the British system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, you know, sometimes you have a majority government where one party has the majority of seats in our parliament or legislature. Sometimes you have a minority government, so that's where they have to force to do business with other parties. So right now we have a coalition between two parties. So apparently that coalition broke down. So the way it works is if there's a vote of non-confidence, then an election has to be called. So if your government is inept and can't pass any bills, then a vote of non-confidence can be called, I believe. In this circumstance, it's actually up to the governing party to call an election if they want to. So there's actually flexibility. As Brooke mentioned, we are a part of the Commonwealth, so we have a lieutenant governor in our province that you have to ask permission to have an election. So
Wow.
And it was
yeah,
passed. So we're
so it's a
having
little
like a
strange.
surprise election. So that means for the parties that aren't currently in power need to really like pull it together, because it's this month. Like our voting day is October 24th.
Aha. Wow. This is wild. I really had no idea. I wish we would have studied a little bit more of Canadian government. I've got to say though, if people were allowed to have a vote of non-confidence here in the States, I think we'd be voting a heck of a lot more because people are very skeptical of the government and don't have much confidence in much that they do. So,
Regardless of the party, right? Because there's so
yeah.
much division. So it would
Yep.
happen often. Yeah. Anyways.
Yes. Wow. Okay. Well, enjoy your political process. I hope it's peaceful. I
Yeah.
hope there's not a recount. I hope your mail service works. All of that
Well,
stuff.
say what happens if like the majority of our population writes in Ryan Reynolds? Like, does that
Mm-hmm.
mean that he then no, those ballots get thrown out
Yeah,
because you didn't write down somebody in your
yeah.
writing?
Or Ryan House, does that mean you have to come up here, move up to BC?
I will definitely listen to offers. I will take that under advisement. I will definitely do that. Wow. Well, okay. I think politics aside, I think we have another topic coming up here, and this is a little different from what we've normally done with our ambushes, because this actually is a listener question. We actually have a mailbag question to share with you guys here today, and we're very excited about this. And so, Joanna, do you want to take it from there, or kind of talk about what the mailbag question might be?
Yeah, one of our listeners heard one of our previous podcasts that discussed a little bit about attachment, and there was some interest in hearing more. So today's topic is going to be about attachment. So I will be sending some questions your way, Ryan, to kind of guide us through this big topic and see what happens.
Okay, attachment. Got it. I look forward to this. Hit me.
It's on its way.
Okay, got it. It came across the border unscathed, and here it is now. Question number 1. Why is attachment important when it comes to human development, and why? All right, attachment. So here we're not talking about an attached file to an email. We're not talking about an attachment that you have for some gizmo around your house. We're talking about attachment theory. So who wants to start off by talking about what in the heck attachment theory is, and then we'll get into why it's important for human development.
I can tackle a very, very simplified definition of attachment. When you think about attachment, it would be our ability to form emotional bonds with other people. So bonds that are typically enjoyable and secure. I don't know if there's any other words that we can go with that right now. And so what attachment theory would be that the bond that we form early in life with a caregiver, typically a mother, but doesn't have to be, will then play a role in how we create or how we form attachments to other people later in life in intimate relationships or things like that. So what happens when we're babies with our caregiver, whether it's a secure, emotionally positive attachment, will impact us later in life. I don't know if anyone else wants to add anything to that.
What time frame are we looking at here? What age range do you think this attachment stuff takes place?
So my understanding, typically like 0 to 6 and 0 to 2. Like, so within the first 2 years of life, 0 to 6, there's a different, you're really bonding, or that attachment's happening with the primary caregiver that's right there. So if you, as a baby, you yourself are not able to take care of your own needs, so you have to rely on someone else to keep you alive. And so for 0, not saying that a 2-year-old can do that, but 0 to 6 is a very sensitive time of life. So your primary caregivers, and then it starts to grow out from that circle to other safe adults or people in your life from 6 to 24 months.
Okay. And what if it's not safe?
So I guess we're saying it's kind of the caregiver's ability to respond to the child's needs in a competent, I don't know, would you say consistent, predictable way. So yeah, whether it's crying, all these different things.
Yeah, I think these early bonds with attachment figures kind of builds a scaffold. Oh, you okay, Ryan? There. These internal. These connections with early attachment figures kind of builds the framework for future relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it's secure, then you approach, I think, relationships later on in life in a more calm and safe way. If it's not, then it can create a bit of issues, some distress, right? Because now maybe connecting with someone is not a source of calm and tranquility, and it's associated with other things, right?
Definitely.
What might it be associated with, Chris?
Well, let's say if your attachment figure is inconsistent, and they don't give you that the love and care that you need at those early ages, maybe you develop some defense mechanisms, right? Maybe you have a hard time processing emotions. Maybe you fend for yourself. Maybe you're guarded when it comes to connecting with friends or significant others later.
It's and so I can give a few of the attachments. So there's said to be 4 types of attachment. So there'd be secure. So for a child, because they say too, it's not about how the child reacts when the mom or whoever goes away. It's how they respond when that parent or caregiver comes back. And so there could be secure, and then the others anxious, resistant, anxious, avoidant, insecure, or disorganized, disoriented. So those are the 4 main ones. And I don't know if we want to go into more detail about what those are, but
might as well. There's some good
combination
info there.
Yeah, so I have some
or
stuff.
Even the strange situation, like how that even came about. I don't, because it's kind of this. Is it okay if I explain that, and then Joanna, you want to describe what those definitions are?
Yep, sure.
Yeah. So in the strange situation, what they did was they had infants, like young children, and their parents in a room, and then they would ask the parent to leave briefly, and they would observe the child and how they would adapt, and then re-enter the adult and notice how they greeted that adult. And then based on that, they noticed that there were patterns of what had happened. So if a parent leaves the room and the child's slightly distressed, maybe tearful or looking for their parent or caregiver, but then adjusts to the environment and starts playing with toys and regulates. Parent comes back in, they run over to greet them. That would be an example of one of the patterns. And they notice for children with different attachment patterns, they responded in different ways to this situation. So they observed what happened when the child was left alone and when the parent was reintroduced. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like you noted, the secure attachment would be the child will interact with others in the presence of the mother, but will become upset when they leave, and might, and then like you said, well, that's more of the strange situation, but yes, they'll become upset when the parent leaves. Anxious, resistant, insecure. So the child would become anxious at the presence of strangers and will not interact with them. When the mother leaves, the child will become very upset and unreceptive to her attempts to interact when she returns. So this might demonstrate that the parent does not consistently meet the child's needs.
So this is a kid who says, okay, mom, you went away, you come back and I'm upset with you. So now I'm not going to attach to you, right? Not going to run up to you, right? Is this the resistant part?
I
Seems
was
to
so
be,
anxious when you
and
left.
very anxious, yeah, and very
Yeah.
anxious when the parent leaves, because I think it might be typical for a child to get upset when their caregiver leaves. I think that's pretty appropriate. But
Mhm.
if it's to the point of being more anxious or can't really calm themselves without the parent there, I don't know if that
Yeah.
would be.
Okay.
Anxious, avoidant, insecure. So the child shows ambivalence towards the mother and towards strangers, does not want to be held, and shows no preference towards caregivers. So this attachment style typically means that a child has learned that efforts to have needs met have been ignored.
So this is the kid who says, fine, you're going away? Fine.
Mhm.
Who needs you? Good riddance.
Because
I'm out of here.
I've tried to need you and you've never been there. So I
Mhm.
need to figure out how to take care of myself. So I'm going to be ambivalent towards you. I'm going to reject help. I'm going to reject connection.
Mhm. So I'll push you away.
And then lastly would be disorganized, disoriented. So though a child with this attachment issue may become upset when the mother leaves and appear relieved when she returns, the child may refuse to be held. They might rock repeatedly or show anger towards the caregiver. So it's a little bit more of a complicated one there.
Mm-hmm. So these patterns are thought to have come across, have been based, as we mentioned, on parental patterns of connection during these early months or years of a child's life. So in my perspective, it's really important, or my opinion, I guess, because it's also going to be the development of that nervous system of what is okay and what's not okay. And without the soothing, the co-regulation of a healthy adult around us, then that nervous system is going to be developed differently and it be more hesitant. And then the patterns of ongoing relationships, which I alluded to in the other episode, we talked about this a bit, where it might end up more like a yo-yo. So if there's been inconsistent or unpredictable nurturing coming from a parent, sometimes I pick you up and show you love when you're crying, other times I yell at you when you're crying. Then that child starts to yo-yo, or there's a pattern that's formed of I need you, I want to lean into you, I love you, but you're gonna yell at me and I'm gonna back off because what if you reject me? And not knowing what to do. And that can be seen in future relationships where it's scary to get close to someone.
Definitely.
Go. Right.
Yeah,
Scary.
it's not safe.
You're not sure what to expect, right? There's no, again, it lacks the consistency, right?
Yeah, I think it impacts your trust and maybe ability to empathize. I don't know. Some situations.
I once had a supervisor who really oversimplified it and said, just think about if you can remember the first time you were dropped off at school, how did you respond to that? Like when you had to separate from your parents at that point. Were you clingy? Were you holding on to the no, don't go, please. Or were you like, fine, whatever, you're gonna leave me here, forget you. Or it was like, oh, this is kind of sad to go, but okay, I gotta meet some new friends. It'll be a good day, right? and just kind of a way to think about how that interaction might have gone and how you might have connected to the new people that you were meeting at that time.
And even furthermore, how you would have been once that parent, after some time, but also when that parent comes back, I think is a really important part, because I think being apart from your parent for the first time with a bunch of people you don't know could be distressing, even if you do have a secure attachment.
Totally.
Do you guys remember your first days of school?
No,
What you-
I sure don't.
Okay, me either. I've heard the story once. I didn't even know. My dad told me the story like a year or so ago, but I don't remember it.
What do you remember what it was? What was the story?
The story was apparently like, I didn't realize he was there for dropping me off either. So, but I'm sure it's similar to many other kids. So they went to drop me off at the front door of the school. And I don't know what I was wearing, but just this little, however old you are, 7-year-old with your little lunchbox and your backpack. And they go to drop me off. And apparently I just stood there looking at them and started crying. And they had to like walk away and say goodbye. And I was just like staring at them confused, like,
I
why
know.
are you leaving me? And with my little lunchbox. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sad.
So my dad was like, it's so heartbreaking. It's the hardest thing to do. Like, I'm sure that was the hardest thing you've ever had to do. Yes. Leave me at school. I was like, didn't I get you back? I went to school for my whole life.
I know, hey? Probably harder on the parents.
Yeah. Overcompensation. I'm never leaving school now.
Yeah, I'm sure like 9 minutes later, like, oh, cool, Lego. And you're probably just having a great time. Your parents are probably devastated at home.
Yeah. Looking out, like looking through the window of the classroom. Is she okay?
I remember my first day of kindergarten, and that was a rough time. I remember,
You do?
Yeah. I remember it was I even had a friend in the class, right? So I knew this kid from down the street was going to be in my class, and it's all cool. And I thought it was going to be scary. I had preschool before that, so I'd been to some schooling before. But it all kind of felt so big. It felt like this big moment. I remember, like it was a big kind of, oh, now I'm meeting these new people. Now I'm a kindergarten. I'm a big kid in school, and it felt kind of overwhelming. I cried a bit. I went in and hung out with my friends and probably forgot about it in 10 minutes, but I remember it was really a big moment. Yes.
Yeah, I don't recall it, so I guess I maybe blacked it out. I don't know. I'm sure I cried though. Pretty confident of that. Yeah, I was the kid that always got homesick.
I remember, Chris, when
Spend the night at a friend's house. Yeah.
Oh,
when
yeah.
we went to Camp Latona, and because I'm younger than you, I went with mom and dad to pick you up, and you were shedding some tears there, standing, waiting for us to come get you.
So imagine it happened at that early age too, because it stopped having at the age of 17. So it was quite the stretch.
Like, forget it, I'm out of here.
Made for some really interesting goodbyes there in high school.
Yeah.
When mom and dad dropped you. No, I was kidding, but yeah.
Question number 2. How has the topic of attachment shown up in your practice? How do you notice it in your own practice?
This was an idea from Brooke.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so this would be, like, I work with adults primarily. I don't really see teens much anymore. So for me, I would say that how it shows up in my practice has to do with relationships, has to do with people who are in coupled up relationships, partnerships, marriages, that sort of thing. And we see how these styles kind of come into play when it comes to communication, when it comes to sex, when it comes to the desire for alone time, the just the dynamic that I find this a lot of times sort of what we call the cat and mouse dynamic. Sometimes we'll have someone who has a more avoidant attachment style who's partnered up with someone who's got a more anxious kind of clingy attachment style. And then we've got one person kind of running away and the other person chasing them, right? And that sort of pattern can play out for quite some time, and it's not really satisfying for either person, either partner in the relationship, really.
It's good that you note about the adults, Ryan, because, and just a little bit of info here, but the big names, if any of the listeners look up attachment, would be, they'd see the names Mary Ainsworth and John Bowlby, because they founded modern attachment. But as I think Sue Johnson, I read, she began using attachment theory in adult therapy. And then there's Hazen and Shaver, who furthered the research of attachment theory on adult relationships. So they noticed that interactions between adults were very similar to interactions between children and caregivers. So it seems like that's a whole other, and there's attachment styles for adults, which are actually different than the ones for children and caregivers.
Slightly.
I think therapeutically for myself, it really highlights the importance of exploring early attachment traumas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And neglect is a huge one, which
Definitely.
I think attachment theory emphasizes. It also, Brooke talked a bit about emotional regulation. So affect regulation, focusing a bit more on that therapeutically, I think is always important, but also being very aware of the actual therapeutic relationship you're establishing with the client, right?
Right.
So, making sure that you're kind of recreating through therapy, maybe an attachment experience that maybe makes up for a little bit of what they lost early on in their lives, right?
Sure. And since we're dropping names, a great book on this was, is it David Whalen? Attachment and Psychotherapy, which is all about how attachment dynamics of the client and of the therapist come into play when people are doing therapy with one another, and how to kind of navigate all those waters, right? So it's important to actually, if you're doing attachment work with clients, and you're a therapist, it's pretty good to know what your own attachment style is and how that might influence the work that you're doing with your clients.
And to make sure there's boundaries.
Yeah, make sure that there's boundaries, make sure that you are aware of how each other attachment style might kind of connect to you and how you might be influenced by that.
Yeah.
So yes, Attachment and Psychotherapy, an excellent book.
Well, since you just name drop too, I might as well name drop as well.
Oh,
Gordon Neufeld is a local psychologist here in Vancouver.
You stole mine.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
You want
go
to
for it. No.
He actually has a model, like 6 stages, to help establish attachments with children. So if you're doing work with parents, often his framework is important for coming up with practical things you can do to help establish that attachment with your kids.
great.
So for me, I work with. Oh, yep.
I was just going to say, yeah, I talked about my work with adults. What about you guys?
Yeah, that's what I was going into. I was going to say,
cool.
I also work with I work with teens and adults, but I work a lot with self-destructive behaviors. And so for me, for affect regulation or emotional regulation, it's important to look at attachment just for more of that nervous system of what's going on there, but also the negative self-beliefs that might be playing of, am I lovable or am I unlovable? And often that kind of gets back into the dynamic early years with parents and what happened there, and if parents were emotionally present and nurturing and consistent and predictable.
Yeah, I just echo that. It's come up because I work with some young children, and there's a lot of discussions with parents just around being that it's such an important relationship, and really working with the parent, especially if it's a young child, to help them kind of respond to the needs of their kid in whatever way possible. Same teens as well as, so I've some discussion with adults, and I think that came up in our previous podcast there. So I think it's a lifelong thing. It's not just it impacts us continuously. So I think you can explore it. And you can look back, of course. I think for teens, you still want to look back. For adults, and it all starts really in that childhood with that caregiver relationship. And it can be perpetuated or influenced by other things as you grow older. So it's not like I don't know if you agree with that, but
yeah, I do. I just pulled up Neufeld's 6 stages of attachment to help kids guide through the first 6 years of life. So I'll fly through these really quickly. So proximity, sameness, belonging or loyalty, significance, love, being known. So lots of good resources online if someone's interested.
That's great.
Sameness.
Sameness. So he said around the age of 2, a child adds sameness. So their desire to be like us is an important element in their acquisition of language. It also helps the growing child and adolescent continue to feel connected to us when we emphasize interests or inclinations that we share with them.
I like it. Yeah, we're together. I mean, I just flashed to this picture of my kid as a little kid, like putting on my shoes, my full big guy shoes. Like we're the same. Like I'm just like you.
Yeah.
Little things like that.
Give it a year or two, he's been wearing that blue shirt.
Absolutely, this is a sameness. I'm trying to provide a sense of sameness by wearing the same shirt on every podcast if possible. Just trying to do a little public service here. Yeah. So look, here's something that I think comes up in my practice as well, again, working with adults. And interesting thing about attachment theory, it hasn't been around as long as a lot of other psychological theories. And for a lot of people, it's becoming much more kind of part of public discourse. People are talking about attachment styles and things like that a bit more, even in kind of casual conversation. And it sort of can become one of these things where a little information can be dangerous sometimes. Like when people don't have quite enough to really wrestle with some of these things. Right. So what I get from a lot of clients through the years has been someone saying, look, I took a test online. I see that I have an anxious attachment style. And it looks like it's just permanent, that it can't be fixed. What can I do about it? Right. And so maybe we could talk just for a minute about the malleability, the changeability of attachment, and the whole idea of what some people talk about as earned security. And is that even possible?
Yeah. I was going to throw in there, remember we all met at the Psychotherapy Network Symposium. Jerome Kagan, a famous, very well-known researcher from Harvard, he's a big expert in temperament. And during his keynote, he said, I'm happy that attachment theory is dead. And Dan Siegel jumped out of his seat and said, I don't want you to mislead people, or I want to share the other side of this argument. It's kind of created this big debate, right? Or Minuchin, a famous family therapist, said that sometimes if we focus too much on attachment, we underestimate the impact of other key aspects of development, right? And experiences in people's lives, right? So it brings up an interesting point, Ryan, is that if you don't have the best attachment, what does that mean, right? Are you doomed?
Right. That's what my clients are wondering. Like, oh no, I have this. Does this mean that I'm going to be forever, feeling insecure in my relationships? Or is there something I can do about it?
I think there's lots of opportunities for corrective experiences. And of course, with the science of neuroplasticity, we can develop new pathways with the brain. We all have that ability to do so. So we talked about even some of those therapeutic interventions where you can maybe assess some of those early attachment. I think a lot of it is awareness of those early patterns and how it's impacting your ability to connect now. And then in that space, trying to make those corrections.
And noting that you don't need that original caregiver that you might have had that anxious avoidant attachment with in order to build that awareness or to make some changes for yourself, because that could be disheartening if that was the belief, right? Or people don't necessarily have that opportunity to kind of better that relationship, so you're able to still do so otherwise, or create other forms of attachments with other people in your lives, important people. That was very wordy, I feel, and I hope I got my point across. I feel like my brain is really not firing in all cylinders today, so it's like beep beep beep. Anyways,
can you summarize that again, please, using interpretive dance?
Interpretive dance.
And the viewer can't see us.
Hugging attachment.
Oh man.
Oh, we're on YouTube now. Everyone can see us.
True.
Let's get the interpretive dance going. I agree with the term that you just used there, Chris, corrective emotional experience, because I think that is really key to this. I think a lot of what we find from a variety of different psychological theories is that, our childhood does impact us, whether it's about our irrational beliefs, whether it's about trauma, whether it's about our attachments, whatever it might be. But I do believe that if we can be sort of intentional about finding things that are uh, are different, are a different experience and a better experience for us, and we could really allow ourselves to trust that, then we can have some growth and some change, and really learn to kind of ease into that. So, and one of the best ways I believe is through psychotherapy. If a client comes to me and they had a lot of neglect or maybe some abuse in their childhood, and they come to therapy, they're oftentimes treating me as if I'm just going to be another person who neglects them and abuses them or rejects them somehow. But if we can build a trusting, bonding relationship that is secure, and they know, okay, Ryan's not going to hurt me. He's not going to leave me. He has my best interest in mind. He really cares. Then that now they have a new template. Now they have something new to base their relationships on, or some of their relationships on, and know, okay, at least there are some more secure relationships out there that I can rely on and trust.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
agree.
yeah.
No, I agree with what you said. Absolutely. I think that the therapy room, while we do a lot, sometimes we use skills and sometimes we have catharsis and all the rest of it. But like, if skills were enough, then nobody would need therapy. They would just go and buy some books and learn the skills.
Totally.
There's something beyond that, and that's the relationship. And so we need that, and a recorrective experience in a healthy relationship is invaluable. Like, it's just a remarkable thing. Also, healthy communities, healthy schools. I mean, there's all of these other microcosms as people grow up and develop, like, and trying to place yourself in situations that are healthier.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We know if a youth has like one positive adult mentor in their life, that makes a world of a difference. So if we as adults can also take responsibility and ownership of our own behaviors and continue working on ourselves, so that we can then provide healthy relationships to the next generation coming up, just in case they don't have it at home.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's an excellent point. And it doesn't mean that it has to be years of that corrective experience. Like sometimes, that one teacher or that one youth worker, or just a conversation or two can have a drastic impact on a child who doesn't have the best attachment with their caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So no, people are not doomed. There is hope. There is hope for the future.
Good to hear. Glad to hear it. I'll pass that along, Brooke. We talked about a lot of different authors. We talked about a lot of different. Are there any other resources just in the last minute here that people can think of they might want to share? I know of one, which is just called. It's an assessment actually. It's called the adult attachment interview.
That's a good one.
Which is something that is given to kind of assess where you are as far as your attachment style goes, and it's actually something I believe you could look up online. Adult attachment interview, but probably best to go through that with a therapist if you're interested.
Yeah, I think for parents of young children, even reading up on Dan Siegel, Chris, you mentioned him a bit, but he's really good at attending to the needs of your child and understanding from a developmental level. Neurodevelop. What am I trying to say? Like the neuroscience around it. There's a lot of education around.
I can't read your mind, Joanna.
No, I know. Dan Siegel. So
Cool.
And then
Okay.
Gordon Neufeld was mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bowlby,
Ainsworth, yeah.
big dogs. Well, this is great. I feel very much more attached as a result of this. I feel more grounded. I feel like I have a better connection with the three of you. I don't know.
That's nice.
That's nice. We feel nothing towards you, right? Okay, so let's. If you enjoyed what you heard here today, please like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, or now YouTube. Send your questions to info@mentalhealthbootcamp.com. Visit us on Facebook or Instagram and tell 3 friends about the Mental Health Bootcamp podcast. Can you do it? Are you up to the challenge? 3 people?
3 people.
We need to get to every province so that the election's fair, and we will say goodnight for the night. Bye, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Hey, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.